This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 74. And before I dive into today's episode, I'm going to invite you to head on over to my website, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/assessment, and find out where you are with any perfectionist thinking or behaviors that may be holding you back in your life. Are there some fears that are driving you and under that umbrella of perfectionism or not? This is not a psychological test or assessment or anything like that. But there are definitely some things that I list on the assessment that I'm going to talk a little bit about in the episode. But you've got a way to go over and just kind of see where you are and how you're doing with it. Again, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/assessment. Now let's dive in. Well, welcome, sisters. Okay, for the past 2 weeks, I've been talking about perfectionism and being an HSP. Are they one and the same? Are they different? Back in episode 72, I discussed some signs that you may be a perfectionist or have some perfectionist really thinking or behaviors that you do. And recognizing as a highly sensitive person, we do have this tendency to want perfectionism, meaning we want to do things right the first time or to do it well, but that doesn't automatically make you a perfectionist in the sense that I'm discussing it. So I'm going to review real quick. If you haven't listened to episode 72, I'd encourage you to do so. But perfectionism is more about the fear of what other people think of you, fear that you are not enough. It's very fear-based thinking. I think where Dr. Elaine Aron was coming from regarding perfectionism in being an HSP is not coming from this fear of what other people will think, but we think so deeply that we want to do the thing that we're going after or whatever right the first time, and we want to do it well. But if there's a lot of fear that is coming up, or that sometimes people call it the scarcity mindset or thinking that you're not enough, that's a tendency towards fear-based thinking. Episode 73, I talked about where a lot of that thinking has stemmed from, where it's come from. So go back and listen to that if you haven't already. And then you can start to understand some of the old mindset, the old patterns that have been maybe running parts of your life. I want to give a huge thank you for those of you who went out to complete the perfectionist assessment. I created a form out on my website where you can go out and kind of check some boxes just to kind of assess to see where you are. It's a really kind of first time I've ever done a form. So I thought, this is good enough. I'm going to put it out there. If you've not done it, you can go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/assessment and complete it for me. Some of the areas that the feedback I received, the areas that are impacted, which is what I'm going to talk about today, is business and career, relationships, and also parenting. So I'm going to give some examples of how perfectionism can look, or those thoughts that can get in the way from you being all of you and getting out of that fear-based thinking. A few of the common themes that I saw from the assessment was the fear of think that others have high expectations of you. There's the procrastination or overthinking things because you're worried about making a mistake, disappointing others, or failing. That you have a high standard for yourself. And as HSPs, this is a pretty common theme too, that you're sensitive to criticism and you try to avoid it. But the thing with all of those is odds are you don't really know that for a fact, that people have high expectations for you, right? And I know I've done this myself, thinking that when I used to work in the corporate world, oh my gosh, my boss or these employees or this department must think I need to do everything correctly the first time, otherwise I'm failing, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have any actual evidence of that. I didn't have facts of that. It was an assumption I'd made. So when I would check in with my managers, whichever place I was working at, oftentimes they were like, nope, that's totally on board, or go ask so-and-so over here for this. And so it just blew a lot of my assumptions right out of the water. When it comes to criticism, yes, it can be hard to hear, and depending on how it's truly delivered, it can actually be something that actually helps you grow personally and professionally. If somebody is criticizing you, though, and taking down your character, putting you down as a person, that actually is emotional abuse. So there's a big difference between healthy feedback and the harsh criticism, as in more emotional abuse. Like, again, taking down your character, saying you suck as a person, that is emotional abuse. That's not okay. And if you grew up in that environment, this is probably where some of this stuff has stemmed from. Again, like I said in episode 73. So I'd encourage you to go back and check out that episode. Okay, on to more examples of how perfectionism can show up in all the different areas of your life. So a while back, you may have participated in my self-care summit, Improve Your Bottom Line and Your Personal Life. And we talked about 6 areas of life, and it's the wheel of life. And I do a lot of this with my coaching clients, checking in to see where they're at. So one area that perfectionism can show up in is physical exercise, right? Getting physical, making sure you're maintaining your health on that level. We know from tons of research that physical exercise not only helps keep the stress out of your body, keeps your organs, internal systems working well, but it actually can just help mood overall. Keeps anxiety levels down, can keep depression down. And yet, funny thing is, oftentimes that perfectionism can kick up in like, ooh, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't want other people to see me sweat. I don't want other people to see that I don't know how to work this equipment. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. That's how perfectionism thinking shows up. The reality is you're not there for other people. You're there for you. If you're going to a gym, ask the people who run the gym how to work some of the equipment. You're not expected to know all this stuff. I've been in so many different gyms over the years when I used to travel a lot for work, and some of the equipment would just look like this big weird box thing. And I'm like, okay, I see there's weights on that, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to be even doing with it. So I would ask. They don't judge you for asking that. They get questions all the times about equipment, how things are supposed to work, not work, all that good stuff. It's okay to ask. Remember, you're doing this for yourself, not for anybody else. Goes back to deciding that this is the best for you. You're not living on this planet to justify your existence to people. All right, finances. I have done a ton of talks regarding money and finances. I love talking to women about money. 1, because it's my accounting background, but 2, I really want women to be empowered when it comes to money. So you can go back to episode 34, 35, 36, where I talked about some money mindset. You can go back to episode 60, where I talked with Lisa Peterson regarding chakra work and finances. But how that perfectionism mindset or thinking can show up regarding your money, whether it's business, personal, is telling you you don't know how to manage money. You don't know where to maybe invest in your money. You don't know how to balance your books. Again, all that is false. It's a lie. That's what fear does so well. That's what anxiety is, right? It's all about the fear of the future and it exaggerates and lies to you. The thing is, if you can add 1 + 1, you can do the math for finances. Perfectionism often shows up in relationships where the couple has 2 different expectations. They have 2 different kind of sets of lenses of how they believe money is supposed to be managed or not managed. Going back and looking at what you grew up with, that's where a lot of the stories are truly created. It's coming from that younger place and how it gets buried into the subconscious. And you're living as an adult through that subconscious versus in utter awareness, meaning your higher awareness, you're up-leveling yourself. So the fear of, oh, I can't ask for what I want. I really want to have 6 months worth of savings for expenses, for emergency purposes, and I'm scared to ask about it, or it's not possible. All of that is fear-based thinking. State what you need or want from your partner. If they choose not to go along with you, it's figuring out a way, how can you make that happen for yourself? Because if that's what you need, more often than not, if you are with somebody who is a healthy partner in the sense there's give and take in that relationship, they will be able to hear like, oh, I had no idea you consistently worried about us not having an emergency fund. Yeah, we can cut down on dinners. We can cut out cable. We can cut out going to Starbucks or getting coffee, multiple times a week to start putting money towards that emergency fund. So if the brakes go out, we have money to work on that. For fun and social life, often what I hear from whether it's introverts or HSPs, it is managing your energy level. And it doesn't mean you have to go out all the time to be with people and to nurture your friendships or your relationships. But when you are working more often than not, when that busyness becomes your badge of honor, as Brene Brown would say, then there's something that's off kilter. Your business is not going to fail if you take some time off and have some fun. What will get impacted, though, is your friendships, your partnerships, your intimate relationships, if you don't spend some time with them and just give yourself a break. Again, studies show that when we truly have downtime, we can actually be more creative. We can actually, energy levels truly go up because you're not constantly overwhelmed and thinking all the time. It's like you give your brain space just to create, let things to percolate, let things inspire you. So put it in your calendar of, well, this is what it looks like for me to have some fun social time. Maybe it's once a month you go out with friends. Maybe it's every other week you just hang out with friends at home, or you do like a potluck where everybody kind of brings something to the house. Whatever. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but giving yourself permission to have downtime is also part of your self-care. So for me, if I don't want to necessarily be around more people because my energy level's just lower, then I get connected to my fiber hobbies that I love to do. So whether it's knitting, weaving, spinning, those are things that actually help me not only get my creative juices going, but help me recharge. So find out what that is for you. Maybe it's taking bike rides. Not only do you hit your exercise in that, but you also are just giving yourself that permission just to unwind, which is fun for you. So for some people, they love doing marathons. They love running. It's not necessarily about the people that are there. It's more like that's what lights them up. So it's finding those things again, which really, when we give ourselves that permission to have that downtime, ladies, if you're in your own business, it will actually improve your business. If in your own career, it can improve that too, because you've got to recharge for yourself. Another aspect that perfectionism really can get in the way is, again, going back to your health and self-care. And like I said, I just did this summit with great coaches and we talked about all of this in there, and you can purchase that. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to purchase it as well, to watch the videos and get handouts and stuff from it. But perfectionism will kick in as like, oh, it's being selfish, if I take time for me, or I don't have time to take time for me, or what are people going to think of me if I take this downtime, or I need more downtime. There must be something wrong with me if I need more downtime. And if you're eating more processed foods, things that aren't necessarily nutritious, that's going to impact also not only your inner organs and stuff, but it's going to impact sleep levels. It's going to impact even mood levels. In episode 62, I talked with Amanda Walker about not only exercise, but healthy eating. So I'd encourage you to go back to that, because we know from research, what we eat, There's the nutrients, nutrition level, but there's also the minerals and the vitamins that come into that. And when we're eating more processed foods, that our body isn't getting it, which really does impact mood level. So the doctors are, when they say you are what you eat, in that sense, it's not a put down. It's being more mindful of what you're putting in your body, because you really can, it's like heal from the inside out by what you eat. If we go back to episode 24, where I was talking with Terry Lance about reversing, diabetes, she shares this information, how she did this for herself. So there's another episode you can go check out too. I've noticed for me, I used to be a huge sugar lover. Love chocolate. Absolutely love it. And as I've gotten older, I've noticed like when I'm eating sugary foods, I don't sleep nearly as well. I actually can wake up really hot because of that. And yes, I understand our inner thermostat goes up at night, but when I've cut the sugar down and even out in some areas, not only have I lost weight, but I've slept better because of that. So again, it's getting curious about what could you do differently when it comes to healthy eating and taking care of yourself. So it's making sure that you truly are taking care of yourself. Again, no one else can do this for you, only you can. And it starts with baby steps and taking these little action steps that I'm talking about today, where you're putting yourself as a high priority. All right, now in the area of relationships, family, friends, intimacy, all of that. Perfectionism shows up that I have to have my house picked up perfectly before I can have friends over. That if I ask my partner this, maybe they're going to think that I'm weird or odd, or that I just don't know anything. Perfectionism can show up as I was rejected in the past, and so there's no way I can go out and date again because nobody will love me. I'm just not enough. All of those things impact your relationships. Again, it's fear-based thinking. I've had many, many conversations with guests regarding just intimate relationships, so dating relationships, romance relationships. You can go out to episode 3, where I talked with Tamara Powell about it. Episode 30 was with Amanda Hildebrandt. Episode 46 was with Dr. Terry Mack. If you are allowing that loud inner critic, the I'm not enough thinking, to run your life, to steer your car, as I love to take from Elizabeth Gilbert's book, you're existing in life, but you're not really thriving. Fear is the thing that is driving everything, and it's not about perfection. You're going to mess up in parenting. You're going to mess up in your dating relationships. You're going to mess up in your friendships. Those things can be changed and altered through communication, healthy communication, setting up healthy boundaries, using assertive communication. There is no human on this planet who is perfect. And if we are trying to live from those standards, my house has to be perfect, my hair has to be perfect, my weight has to be perfect, my outfit has to be perfect, you're setting yourself up to fail because it doesn't exist. You also are setting yourself up, if you're not already, to be codependent, meaning your happiness depends on someone else's happiness, that you're living through them versus for yourself, which if you do that, the odds are you're also going to resent the person because they can't live up to the standards you're setting for them. It's about embracing your sensitivity strengths, the woman who you are right now in this moment, and the woman that you are striving to become, meaning you're doing that inner work so that you can create the life that really fulfills you. No one else can do that for you. No one else can create the happiness. Only you can. If you are consistently looking outside of yourself, as I stated in, I think it was episode 73, that's that external locus of control, you will never fill up that love bucket. You will never, ever be able to fill up that enoughness bucket. When you start to believe in yourself and that you have the ability to really break free from this perfectionist thinking, you can make some incredible changes in your life. So another area that often shows up, and I'm going to come back to parenting in just a second, but another area that shows up is the spirituality. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know I am all about having a spiritual practice. And I know a lot of people talk about, well, mindfulness is, meditation. That's also a spiritual practice. Walking meditation is a spiritual practice. You're observing what's going on around you without judgment. You're being in the moment. Sitting meditation, you're being in the moment. You're just observing the thoughts that are going by versus getting stuck in them. One truly excuse, as I call it, is an excuse when I talk about meditation with my clients. If they don't have a practice, they're like, well, I can't sit still long enough for that, Nicole. Oh, I can't meditate. My mind's going all the time. Well, that's just an excuse. Everyone is truly capable of mindfulness, meditation, going within. What often happens, or what prevents that, is a fear of, I don't know who I'm going to become after that. It makes my body all twitchy sometimes, or I feel too much in that moment, and that scares me, so I stop myself from going there. It's knowing that when you give yourself permission to do small increments of time, that intensity will decrease. That when you begin to just open up to what's coming through you and not attach yourself to it, that intensity, again, goes down. From all the different books I've read, mentors I've had, coaches I've worked with, the key thing that most of them will state, and there's research as well regarding highly successful people, one of the common themes that they have in practice is a spiritual practice, a mindfulness practice, a breathing practice, anything that gets them to realign with their core values and follow that inner wisdom. And, I've said, if you've been listening to me in these podcasts, the alignment with God, universe, that higher power. Successful folks typically have a spiritual practice in place so that they can be the best of who they are. They feel the fear and they do it anyways. Every single guest that's been on this podcast has faced fears, continues to face fears, but not get stuck in that perfectionism or fear-based thinking. One of the things that came back in the perfectionist assessment for an area that gets impacted is parenting. And yes, I know I can kind of lob it into the relationship stuff because that's part of it. But so often in my clinical practice, when I do work with parents and teen girls and all that, I hear like, oh, I'm messing this up. And yeah, maybe they're messing up pieces of it, but it doesn't mean that they're failing as a parent. They're here doing the work if they're open to the feedback. And it's recognizing, again, where their fear-based thinking is coming from regarding what it means to even be a parent. So I know some of you had really crappy parents. You just did. They were physical abusive, emotional neglectful, all of those really crappy things. It does not mean you automatically are going to become the same or that you are the same. If you're listening to this, to me would be you are taking the effort into doing things differently, raising your children in a very different way, and you're doing the best that you can. That's where that self-compassion really comes in. When anything to do with perfectionism, self-compassion is a key component of it. You can't do parenting perfectly. You are going to mess up. Your kids are going to mess up. When your kids' behavior, especially teens, often parents take that as a direct personal affront, like they did this, and which is a direct reflection of my parenting. Maybe, maybe not. The reality is your child made a decision and there's a consequence, positive or negative, for the choice that they made. So they may know that's right, wrong, and they took a risk. Remember, their brain isn't even fully developed yet. They don't have that full frontal lobe yet. And so their risk behavior is different than an adult's behavior. They don't calculate it the same way. So that's where those teaching moments come in. Each and every one of you listening, I know, is doing the best that you can do. And I want to really remind you, it is totally possible for you to break free from this. So it's remembering you're not responsible for other people's behaviors or emotions. You're responsible to them regarding how you conduct yourself with others. That's it. If you mess up, You need to do a repair. Go back and ask for forgiveness. Admit your mistake. Admit whatever happened in that moment. Learn from it so you don't repeat it. That's part of it. I often share with my clients where when they jump over the fence and they're in somebody else's lane, right? Whether you refer to it as, I say sometimes you're on someone else's sidewalk or you're in their lane, you're over functioning. You're trying to take on their stuff versus stay in your own lane. Stay focused on where you are. Oftentimes, when your perfectionism is driving you to overfunction, then you need to back up a little bit or back off a little bit and underfunction. That way the other person, they can raise up the function level for themselves. Remember, each person is responsible for their own stuff. Staying in your own lane, and that will help decrease the overwhelm as well. When you're truly in alignment with what works for you and you're managing your own energy level, things begin to shift that way. You've heard me many, many times talk about why I think it's so important to get curious with why you reacted to a certain situation or event. When we get into the place of curiosity, it's not about judging those thoughts or those behaviors. It's coming more from like, wow, what about that? What they said, their tone, the event. I just reacted. What was that about? When we get curious and we can start to explore where our belief system is or what our belief system is, so that you're no longer unconscious, letting the subconscious really run your life. You gain more awareness and you can start to do things differently because you're going to think differently. You're becoming more intentional with your thoughts. It's fascinating how we humans can just kind of go about our day. We're not even intentional of what we want to feel during the day. We're not intentional of what we want to think. And it's all about priming that subconscious. The power of being present is huge. Remember, fear-based thinking is about that future that hasn't happened yet. You can't control the future. You can make plans, you can create goals. It's not about that. It's about letting go of those outcomes. It's about letting go of how it's going to unfold. I know I've reached out to friends before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in this thinking of, I don't know, this isn't going to happen. They're like, that's just the fear. It's the illusion that it's not going to happen, and yet it's not here. That future is not here yet. So keep coming back to that present moment. A way that you can start to shift your thinking is, what am I making this mean? So when fear is trying to run it, pause for a second. It's like, wow, I've got this inner story going on, and you know I love talking about inner stories. But what am I making this to mean? What else could I see from this thing that is going on? When you're getting feedback from others, let's say it's from friends, parents, whatever, and they're saying, oh, you can't do this. Oh, that's not possible. Oh my gosh, that's really risky. It's recognizing oftentimes they're coming from a really loving place because they don't want you hurt or whatever. But the other thing to really remember too is, unless they've done their own inner work, oftentimes they're projecting their own fears onto you. And if what you're going after is in alignment with your values, with your true inner kind of compass, your own inner wisdom, then it's up to you to take those steps, not for anybody else. You don't need permission from others to do what lights you up, to go after those things, whether it's creating a healthier relationship, or maybe you need to hire help at home so that you don't feel so overwhelmed all the time. I'm fascinated by how women, we can put one another down, because this woman over here wanted to hire a housekeeper to help her from feeling so overwhelmed because she's working with multiple children and she's got an outside job, and maybe the partner she's with doesn't really support her in any of this sort of stuff. And so I was like, oh, I can't believe she'd hire that. You know, she could barely do X, Y, and Z. It's like, hey, if that helps her, that's her lane. That's her side of the story. So it's really giving yourself permission to create the life that works for you. Have conversations that you're in relationship with of what you need or want. Now, again, they may or may not do what you ask them to do, but you let go of that outcome. If they're not going to be able to provide that or do what you need, then what can you do differently, if anything? Do you need to hire extra help? Do you need to maybe possibly change jobs? Begin to explore other positions because it's such a toxic environment. I think one of the biggest things to really remember is when that fear's trying to run the show, when that perfectionism thinking is going on, more often than not, it's a much younger part of yourself running the show, because the odds are she probably didn't get her emotional needs met. She probably didn't feel seen or heard. And so she's really scared of going after what she really wants because the world is a big, scary place to her. Remember, you are this incredibly powerful woman who is an adult, who has more power than you did as a little girl. It's reminding that little one inside of you that you've got her, that she's safe with you, that you know how to assert yourself, that you know how to set a boundary or two or three, that it's okay to pivot, that if the thing you want to go after in your job, let's say there's a job promotion coming up, and your little one, she's coming up like, well, but we're probably not going to get it. We're just not skilled enough. And oh my gosh, and then we're going to have to work more hours. And oh, I just don't know if we can do this. And she's just going like crazy to remind me, it's like, hey, I won't know unless I ask. I'm no worse off if I put myself in the hat to go for that job position than I am where I am now. I've often seen it when I've worked with healers as well, or other coaches, that there's a fear of even raising their own fees. They're in demand, they've got incredible skills, they're making an impact in the world, but they're scared of raising fees because, people won't then, invest in themselves. I may not be able to get the business I want, yet they don't have any evidence that supports that. The evidence that they do have is that they're qualified, that there's a market for it, and they're getting clients. When you invest in yourself, I have paid thousands of dollars for therapy, for coaching, and it's helped me become who I am today. It has helped me progress there faster than if I've done this on my own. That's why I like to talk about the money as well, to go back when people are like, let me think about it. And 5 years later, they're basically in the same space as where they were, because there's a fear of investing in themselves. It's a fear of actually saving to invest in themselves. It's like putting a bucket of money aside saying, this is for my own personal development. If you own your own business, personal development is part of it. Yep, you need to invest in, business related areas too. But so much of it is the mindset that goes with it. And if perfectionism is preventing you from going after what you want, I encourage you, go out to my website, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/apply, set up a clarity call. Let's see, where you're getting stuck so that you can move forward. So it's progress over perfection. I'm going to take these steps because as an adult, I can do this. The only person who can create the life that I really desire is me. I'm 100% responsible for where I go and what I do in my life. And when I fully decide, things begin to shift and happen. Back in episode 57, I talked to Carla White about her app, the Gratitude app. And she shared during that episode how gratitude truly changed her life, how it impacted her life so much. And again, positive psychology has talked about gratitude and done so many studies regarding it. So if you're stuck in that perfectionism thinking where it's like, oh my gosh, I've got high expectations for myself, high standards for myself, begin to focus on what's one thing right now in this moment that you're grateful for. Maybe it's you've got a roof over your head. Maybe it's because you have heat. Maybe you've got food in your refrigerator. Maybe it's you have one just incredible friend who loves you just the way you are, who can hold you accountable for some stuff if you're messing things up or you're just like blah all over the place, but they do it in a loving way. Maybe you have a very loving partner. Maybe you've got incredible kids. Whatever that thing is, just notice that. Focus on that. Allow yourself to feel the emotion that comes up when you focus on what you're grateful for right now in this moment. So you only have this moment. And our brain literally cannot, when we bring memories back up, it cannot decipher whether it did happen, is happening, or it's going to happen. So when you anchor yourself in that feeling where you are now, those fears and anxieties begin to go down. It's knowing I have the ability to make a difference by taking one small step that is aligned with my inner truth, my inner values. So I hope you found this helpful today, ladies. And again, if you haven't taken the assessment, I'm just going to encourage you to go out and do that. Until next time, take care. Thank you for listening. Curious about where you stand in perfectionism? Head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/assessment. Take that short little assessment that I've created just for you and see how you do. No right or wrong, just an assessment. Take care.